Thanks for stopping by. I'm killing two birds with one stone, and I'm folding some clothes. And I thought I would tell you guys a story at the same time. So I did used to be a police officer, and this story is about the last fight I remember having before I resigned. This wasn't my last call or my last day, but it's my last fight. And I've got a sick baby on the couch. She's just gonna lay up there and rest. But anyway, so this fight, it wasn't a extraordinary fight. It was just a normal kind of fight that you would have sometimes. But I'm at the on-cue. It's a gas station. And I'm sure I went there to go pee. When you wear, or you have a gun belt on, with all your tools, and it just presses right on your bladder. Not as bad as when you're pregnant, but it's kind of bad sometimes, especially if you're sitting down. So anyway, I'm sure I was there going to the bathroom, and you come down this ramp into the intersection. You're leaving the on-cue parking lot, you're coming down. And I'm sitting there waiting for the light to change, and I hear a big boom, and my first thought is something has exploded. But then I see cars coming into the intersection. Well, what had happened was this guy was high and drunk, and he just doesn't even slow down one bit and runs into the back of these three cars waiting for the light to change at this intersection. So those three cars coming through the intersection. That guy, I don't really know how, but he comes airborne and goes up over the guardrail, and he's under the overpass now. It's a concrete, overpass is above us, and there's just a guardrail, and that is up. He's now up now by the on-cue. So I see all this, and my first thought is, oh, that person's probably hurt. I mean, it was a heck of a crash. So I just put on my lights, and I get out of my car, and I run up that guardrail. It's on the side of a sidewalk, and I run up it, and I'm thinking this person's hurt. So I've called for IMSA. I've radioed what has happened, and I'm up under this overpass, and how he hit, which I still don't know, because I didn't see his car. I mean, I knew his car went up there, but I didn't see it actually go up there. And his truck is now facing me as I'm running up, and I see him in there, and my first thought was, he's not acting like someone would act if they've been in a wreck. So as a police officer, that's one job I never cared for, was working wrecks. But a lot of people cry, after a wreck. I mean, a man probably wouldn't, or they're upset, or they're just trying to get out of their car and, proceed. Someone's like, okay, we got to handle it. I've been in a wreck. Well, he's not acting like that at all. He's looking at me through the windshield, and I can see he's hit his head. I don't remember which side. He's bleeding, so blood's coming down his forehead. And he goes to get out of his car, and I said, hey, I've called for an ambulance to check you out. And he looks at me. When he looks at me, I can tell he's on something. So I'm thinking, great. Side note, I am somewhat of a germaphobe and OCD about a lot of things. Yeah, those two things don't quite mix. With being the police officer, I wore gloves. I kept gloves in my pocket all the time. But in this case, I didn't have gloves on. That didn't matter. But he's bleeding really bad, and I'm thinking, I don't want to necessarily go hands-on on him and have to restrain him. Now, he is bigger than me, but as a police officer, you don't think, oh, this person's bigger than me, I'm going to lose. You never have that mindset. You think, I'm going to win. I might have to use different strategy or tactic, especially as a female. I would have to use maybe a different tool than one of my partners that was way bigger than me, to fight this guy. But you're never going to lose. That's never an option. So I am thinking in my mind, how can I get around this? So I just tell him, I said, hey, you can't leave. He's trying to walk away at this point. He's trying to walk off. He knows, I don't know. I wasn't thinking that car was stolen. I don't think it ended up being stolen. But he probably had warrants. I can't even remember what he had. I mean, he ended up going to jail, obviously, for all that stuff. But he's trying to leave. He's trying to flee the scene. So I said, you had to get your police voice on. And I said, no, you can't. I didn't say it like that. I said it worse. But he's trying to leave, and I said, no, you can't. And I'm thinking, oh, I really don't want to have to get on him, grab a hold of him. So I do get on my radio, and I said, hey, he is going to fight, saying that, like, hey, go ahead and hurry up in case, this is going to get bad. And I do have a taser, and I've tased a lot of people, and I thought I'm just going to have to tase him. And this is why I think it's winter, because winter is harder to tase people if they have a jacket like this. If there's probes from a taser, if it went in here and didn't grab my skin, then it wouldn't be effective. So I'm thinking, I need to tase him, and it needs to work, or I'm going to tase him, it's not going to work, and I'm just going to have to prepare to restrain him. So I tell him, I said, I'm going to tase you if you don't stop. Well, he didn't stop. So I line up right on him, and I tase him, and thankfully I think I hit him right in the middle, and so it locked him up. A larger spread would probably locked him up more, but anyway, my desired effect happened, and he locks up, and he throws him back into his truck, the front of his truck, and he just kind of sits. He's just sitting down now. And the thing about somebody that if they're on drugs, especially PCP or something like that, they don't feel pain like normal people feel pain, so they can push through it. I mean, there's been times where people's bones, they're just like dangling, and they're still fighting like nothing is wrong. They can't feel that pain. So he's on something. I don't know what it is at that time. And I said, don't get up. I'm going to tase you again. Well, he tries to get up, so I tase him again, and I think he gets the point. And at that time, my partners come running up that embankment, and they get him in handcuffs and everything. Such a great feeling. It even gives me chills today to think about that. That's the thing about the police. It is a family, and they are going to come running, and they're going to come, and they're going to bring everything they have if one of their own is in trouble. So I knew they were coming, and it worked out fine. That wasn't like a crazy bad fight. I just had that one in my mind because when I was up there, and I'm pretty sure I was engaged to my husband, I was thinking, I'm probably not in the right place anymore, if that makes sense. Because my brain was I was not focused on that situation like I probably should have been. I mean, I was focused enough to get that accomplished, but my mindset wasn't quite right, because I was thinking, I don't want to get hurt doing this. I wasn't ever thinking I was going to die. I mean, that is something that can happen, unfortunately, and it has happened. But I was thinking, there's other things I need to be doing, and not up here under an overpass fighting this drunk guy, because he wants to leave. So that has always stuck with me, and I just wanted to share that with you guys, because I think about it, not all the time, but quite often, that was the turning point where it was like, okay, when I get married and when we have kids, I won't be there anymore. Now, we had talked about it. That wasn't like, oh, an epiphany, I'm going to not be a police officer anymore. That wasn't it. Like I said, that wasn't even my last call. It was just something that I thought about, because it was kind of you don't have a fight like that every day. Anyway, so before my husband and I got married, I knew that I wasn't going to keep working when we had kids. It wasn't something we talked about all the time, but I just knew that would happen. And the decision to do that, I think back and go, was pretty easy. I just went in and turned all my stuff in, and I think back on that now and go, wow, I can't believe I made that decision that easily, because of the effort and the time and all it took to get on the police department. It wasn't easy by any means. Hard, really hard. And you make friends, and that's your career. So within a span of a year, I got married, had a baby, and resigned. And I looked in the mirror, and I didn't know who that person was anymore. I didn't know that person. So it's taken me a long time. I mean, it's been 7 years now since I resigned. So I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning. But I can say without a doubt, it was worth it to leave. It's worth it to do what I'm doing now. This is fulfilling tenfold to that. As soon as I left, someone came in and filled my spot. No one can come in and fill my role as a helpmeet to my husband, or as a wife, all that entails. And then as a mom, all that entails. Homeschooling my kids, taking care of the house, being here. I call it being a ranch manager. That's just putting out fires every day at your house, but I'm here and I'm present. if I was at work, you can't do both. You really can't. And I feel for those women that work full time and then come here and have to take care of everything you still have to take care of. That's hard. But the fulfillment of being here and taking care of my family is tenfold worth it over, I would say, I call it the approbation of wanting that, like, hey, you did a good job on that. I didn't necessarily do a good job on that fight thing. I mean, it was what it was. But, taking care of business, you don't get that, when your kid throws up and you clean it up, no one comes up and says, hey, good job cleaning that up. That doesn't happen. Or your son is reading really good or something, and no one is coming up to you and saying, hey, good job teaching him. That was great. You just don't get that. But, in the police department or at other jobs, it's kind of like, hey, good job. You did that good. You don't get that. But that's okay, because you know internally that this is pleasing to God. And above anything, that's what I want is, am I glorifying God in what I'm doing every day, or am I seeking man's approval? Am I trying to find some person or something to fulfill me instead of what God has for me? And I just know from personal experience, what God has for me, even though this is hard, this is harder than any fight I've ever been in. It just is. You're responsible for human beings. They've got to eat. They've got to sleep. They've got to just survive the day. And it's hard. And if you're in it, you're in it. You're in the trenches. You're doing it. And it's hard. But I wouldn't trade it. And I'm glad. There were times when I'd have to ask my husband, did I make the right decision? And of course, every time he said yes. But that, I want to have that adrenaline. I want to have that go into something crazy that you don't know what's gonna happen. I do miss that. I do miss that still. But I've learned to accept that that's okay. I did get to enjoy it. I did it, and I'm thankful for that experience. But anyway, I wanted to get on here and just tell you that story, that fight story. I have other fight stories, and I have other really funny stories that you just wouldn't believe unless you were there, or that I could tell you about. But I hope you guys stick around, maybe come back, and I can tell you some of those things, or things that you might want to know. I have a different perspective being a female police officer. If there's questions or things that you want to know, put them in the comments, and I sure like to talk about those. And then here in just a second, you'll see some video. This isn't one day. This is a couple of days of us just doing stuff around our house, around the homestead, just some things to take you along, and just kind of see what we do day in and day out. But like I said, thanks again for stopping by, and I hope to just share with you my perspective that I had as being a female police officer, and now that we have a small homestead and we homeschool and all that entails. It's a lot. So we'll see you next time. This is me shooting my shotgun at the range. This was when I was still a police officer. I love to shoot. It's one of my favorite things to do. I don't get to do it very much, but I do enjoy shooting. And this is me today. I'm making some gluten-free cookies to take to church. My kids were having their Christmas program, and afterwards they were having cookies and punch. I don't eat gluten. I haven't had gluten in over 12 years. It's just something that I can't tolerate. And so I try to make most things gluten-free. And then here we are, we're making lunch. That's a roast I did in the Instapot. I got up early and put it on low and slow. And we even ended up putting it back in after lunch and had it for dinner, and it was even more tender and moist. I've butchered so many roasts trying to hurriedly cook them, especially on the pressure cooker setting in the Instapot. I know there's a way to do it, but I just haven't figured that out yet. So I've dried out and made them tough, and that's no fun to eat. So I'm not the one that's going to be in the kitchen experimenting and doing recipes and cooking. I don't enjoy cooking, but I want to feed my family good, hearty meals. So I just really try to find simple things that I know everyone will eat, and I stick with those. And then this is some video of my kids playing chess. I guess my husband was there playing with my son. He's just learned how to play, and so him and my other son, they've been loving playing chess right now. And then we're just gathering some eggs from one of our chicken coops, and my son caught one of the roosters. He was flying in the yard. I'm just trimming one of his wings. If you trim one, they say it keeps them off balance and they can't fly in the yard, but we have had to trim both wings on some of our chickens, and that has stopped them from flying in the yard. So I don't know. We just can't have them flying over because our garden is in our backyard. See, just like that, they get through that gate, through that hole. And we can't have them getting over, especially when we have things in the garden and they'll start eating everything. And then there's my boys. I think a gate had been left open, and so some chickens got in the yard, and they're just helping me, my little helpers. It's such a good responsibility for them to be able to take care of those chickens. They really do help me. I rely on them a whole bunch. They go and open the coops in the morning and close them up at night. And then we had a fire. My husband did a fire that day. It was pretty cold, but just to kind of keep us outside and have something fun to do, he put a fire in the fire pit, and then we kept it going, and we had s'mores that evening. Nothing like s'mores and fire to keep you entertained. And then here's my boys and my husband. They're trying to set some gopher traps. We had a gopher tearing up our pasture, and we didn't want to just stick poison down in the holes because we have a barn cat and we love her. There she is. And we just didn't want her to eat whatever was making those tunnels and those holes and then get poisoned. And here we're just doing some winter chores. We planted some apple trees in the spring. You can't see them. They're really still pretty little. Can't see them too good in this video, but I'm just saturating the ground with water. You do this every couple of weeks just so they'll survive the winter. It's not a whole bunch. It's not that time consuming, but just from time to time I go out and water the ground really good around the trees so they'll survive. And then there's the garden. It's nothing in it, of course, but we hope to add a lot more to it. Last year was our first year to have a garden, so we're hoping this year we can learn some things and just keep on improving it. And then here I am, I'm washing out one of the water troughs. We do have a pond that the horses can drink out of, but it's not very full right now, so we always make sure they have water. And I'm just rinsing out the bottom because it can get yucky with kind of like algae and mud and grass. So I'm just rinsing that out and then filling that up. But we have a frost-free hydrant that you can't see. And we lived and learned. Last winter we left a hose hooked up to it, and the only way a frost-free hydrant really works is because it can drain out. It has a hole in the bottom of it that it drains out to the ground, but if you have a hose hooked up, it can't fully drain, so we had to get another frost-free hydrant over there. And then here I am, I'm just piling up some wood in the wagon. We have a wood pile closer to our house, but it was such a nice day, I thought I would go out and just stack up some wood from our pile out in the pasture. Just gather up some to keep on the back porch, so on those cold mornings we just can literally just open the door and grab some wood and get the wood stove going. It's such a blessing to be able to heat our house with our wood stove. We haven't had to turn our furnace on at all this winter, so we're super happy about that. And here we are, we're feeding the horses. There's a pecking order, so they're trying to get in line, seeing who's gonna eat where. It's a pretty mild day. Our winters in November and December in Oklahoma are usually pretty mild. It's January and February that we can get those ice storms, but in Oklahoma really you just never know. It can rain, have a tornado, snow, and then the sun come out. You just never know. But anyway, we're just finishing up our chores. Thanks for stopping by. I hope to take you along on some other things, some other projects we have going on, some homeschool stuff, and I'd just still like to share some more of my police stories with you.